Let me say good afternoon to everyone. I am joined today by Houston Police Chief Troy Fenner and several of his investigators with Houston Police Department, along with Rania Macarius of the Crime Stoppers Houston and her team. And then we also have with us some family members who are in a lot of pain right now, and I appreciate their presence here today. We have Shirley Steele, who is the mother of Layla Steele and the grandmother of Zeus, and 1 year old. And then we also have with us Regina Carhill, who is the mother of Gregory Carhill and the grandmother of Harmony and Lyric. And so I appreciate them for taking the time at this time to be here, to be standing with us, because it is important for people in our city to be able to recognize that when people are injured or killed through violence, that we are talking about families, and their lives have been permanently changed. So I just want to extend my condolences and prayers to these two different families whose lives have been changed in the last 48 hours. All of us have been shaken by the disturbing and senseless, and I do want to underscore senseless, violence that has taken place in the last 48 hours. But let me just even extend that even further. The violence has been taking place in this entire year and even going into 2020. This week has been especially heartbreaking because some of the violence has harmed and taken the lives of innocent children. And that goes right to your very heart when we are talking about our children. The city is taking steps proactively, working to keep our city safe by collaborating with other law enforcement agencies and community leaders. But it's important for us to recognize that it is all of our responsibility, every single person in this city. And the police have been working nonstop to solve the latest shootings. And today, I just simply want to let the public know that the Houston Police Department and our investigators have taken into custody the suspected shooter in Wednesday's night triple murders of a mother, a husband, and their 6-year-old daughter. That case is being processed as we speak. One man is in custody, and they are looking for a second. And in a moment, Chief Fenner will offer more details on that particular case. At the same time, while they are not at the same time, let me just say that again want to offer my condolences to the family members of 35-year-old Gregory Carhill, 29-year-old Daniela Lackway, and their daughter, and then 6-year-old Harmony Carhill. A 10-year-old inside the apartment was also shot but survived, along with a 1-year-old who was not injured. Houston police have identified another suspected shooter in another horrific case that happened this week as well. Layla Steele, whose family mother is with us, was gunned down Thursday while holding her infant son, Zeus. The shooter is not yet in custody, but police have a pretty good idea of who this person is and is now seeking to locate him. The person of interest was out on 7 felony bonds and was wearing an ankle monitor at the time. Let me simply say, as mayor of this city, this person is listening. Let me encourage you to turn yourself in to the Houston Police Department. we're doing everything in our power to find this person, and I have no doubt we will find this person. And so let me just encourage the person to turn yourself in. And once again, I want to offer my condolences to this family that's grieving, to this grandmother and mother who's standing with us today. As a city, we are taking steps to curb the rise in violence, which is happening in our community. It's happening all over the country, but that the fact remains, it is happening in our city. And we want to do everything that we can to curb the rise in violence. Before I turn it over to Chief Fenner, I want to acknowledge that I know people are rightly concerned about the increase in crime in our city. It is important for us all to note that many of these crimes are occurring in several categories. One, in a domestic situation, or where the perpetrator is familiar and knows the person who has been the victim of that crime. Or secondly, where there are narcotic deals, or where it's gang-related shootings. All of these are certain categories. Another category I would underscore would be road rage. And so we are taking steps to crack down in all of these categories, and taking the initiative to do our part in keeping people safe within our city. I want to certainly acknowledge Chief Fenner and HPD for working in partnership with other law enforcement organizations in this city, as well as outside of this city, to expand the law enforcement presence in this city. And I think you will recognize that there will be even more so of this as we head into this weekend, this extended weekend. Because of the rise in crime, I've provided an additional $2.1 million in overtime to HPD in order to expand our reach and our presence in this city, and to take additional steps to target where this crime appears to be occurring. We are increasing the number of, in particular cases, of monetary awards to Crime Stoppers, as we have done in the past, and we'll be continuing to do that as we move forward. We've added another 6 cadet class to HPD in order to increase the number of police officers on our street. And we're using technology more in order to solve and to prevent some of these crimes from occurring. I do want to acknowledge and thank the county for the steps they have taken over the last week to expend an additional $15 million as it relates to strengthening the criminal ecosystem in Harris County. And that will help to reduce the 100,000 case backlog that exists. And so that is a step in the right direction. But let me also acknowledge that any person who is out, for example, on a 7th felony bond, whether it's in these cases or any cases, that is unacceptable, and there is no real justification for anybody to be out on 5, 6, 7 felony bonds. And so let me just say that that too needs to come to an end. That needs to stop. We're all in this together. It's not about it's recognizing that when people are victimized, and certainly when lives are lost, families are forever changed. And so again, let me say to the city of Houston as a whole, to every single person within our city, if you know of individuals, for example, who have committed crimes, whether it's robbery, assault, or homicide, if you know who they are and where they are, you too have an obligation to identify those persons and to provide that information. We all have a role to play. There should be no safe place in our city for any person that has committed a crime. And let me just say, especially to those individuals who are harming our children, okay? There should be no safe place. No single person in our city should find it acceptable for any person that has the gall to shoot or harm our children in our city. Should be no safe place. Shouldn't have to wait on the police to go and find them. If you know who these persons are, who are hurting and killing our children, you too have an obligation to speak up and say something without waiting on the police, or quite frankly, without waiting on a reward offered by Crime Stoppers. This is where all of us should draw the line. This is where all of us should draw the line. And quite frankly, the line has to be drawn. For individuals who are walking, driving on our streets, and shooting these guns just like as if they are BBs, that's totally unacceptable. And so what I am saying, we will do our part. The city will do its part. HPD will do its part in order to keep our city safe. We'll put forth the overtime. We'll bring on more people. We'll use the technology. We'll partner with other law enforcement organizations. I will say to the judges and others not to put people back on the street who have committed 3 and 4 and 5 felonies, okay? Relying on ankle monitors to control their whereabouts. That's unacceptable, okay? Reduce the backlog that exists in our city. Open up our courts, okay? We'll invest in the community. We'll provide jobs for people in our city. We'll do all of those things to give people an opportunity to succeed. But at the same time, every person in our city has to take public responsibility and safety as their responsibility. And it's not about blaming anyone. It's about letting those who commit crimes, the criminals, know that there is no safe place in our city for anyone who's committing these crimes. If we do that, and if we work together, the numbers will go down. But any person who harms our children, we will expend whatever it takes to find you. And we will find you. We will find you, okay? Now let me yield and let me turn it over to Chief Fenner.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to get up?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So let me thank Crime Stoppers, and Rainey and the organization has been very, very helpful in working with us and providing information and rewards to people who are committing crimes. And so I appreciate Rainey for being here today. Crime Stoppers, Rainey.
Thank you, Mayor Turner. Thank you, Chief Finner. And to the families, we express our heartfelt condolences and deep, overwhelming frustration. I echo every single thing the mayor said. If you've been following Crime Stoppers for the last year and a half, you know we've been extremely vocal on some of the issues Mayor Turner has brought up. We are here because Houston has endured another horrific wave of violence and bloodshed, causing us now to be in the midst of one of our deadliest years in recent history. At this point, if you are truly paying attention and honestly wanting to protect citizens, you can no longer hide from the reality that the repeated releasing on bond of violent felony defendants, it is a major contributor to this spike. Our research has now identified over 120 men, women, and children who have senselessly lost their lives. They've been killed because of these repeated releases. Of the over 120, an overwhelming majority would be classified as minorities. 15 were killed trying to flee from a domestic violence situation, and 9 were children, and that number is rising. This is not political, but it is time for every elected official in the city and county to acknowledge this, talk about it, and work to fix it. When you endorse or encourage the repeated release of the most violent offenders back into the community for the sake of protecting their liberties, the liberties of those offenders, you are immediately and automatically allowing the safety of every other Houstonian to take a back seat. It is wrong. And basic common sense would tell you that, and if it doesn't, then let's rely on the data. How do we prevent this? We have found that bond conditions and ankle monitors are not helping in these specific cases. We also see that the DA's countless requests to revoke bond have fallen on deaf ears. We blame no one, but we call on all elected officials to work together to address this. We need to stop releasing people on multiple felony bonds. To that end, we join the community in being very thankful to the consistency and leadership and partnership with Mayor Turner and our Houston Police Departments. Their efforts to do absolutely everything within their jurisdiction to end this crime is truly to be applauded. We encourage the community to pay attention, get involved, ask the right questions of the right people in an appropriate manner, and we will continue to be the voice of the victims. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our Crime Stoppers partners, and thank you, Mayor, for your commitment to public safety. But most importantly, thank y'all for standing with us. Two families, the Steele family and the Carheat family. Thank y'all for being here. I want to say this because the mayor's already said enough. Our children, I've said it as executive assistant chief, I'm going to say it as chief. Hands off. Hands off. You have two families that are ripped apart. Two families on the stage. I have a mother and grandmother, both of them, suffering from violence in our city. But I pledge, and everybody here pledged, all our police officers, and I want to pause one moment, because y'all don't get a chance to see our commander of homicide, Belinda Knoll, much, but she's standing to my left. Thank you for the great work. From the minute these cases dropped a few days ago, our investigators have been working 24/7 around the clock. There are two suspects that we have identified, persons of interest. They are working, our investigators are working as we speak on filing the charges. And I know we want to release names and we want to ask more into the investigations. I cannot do that right now. But I make you one promise. As soon as that paperwork that is signed, we're going to send it out. Photos and names and information. And it's one that's outstanding. We have one suspect that's in custody on an unrelated charge. He's in custody. But the one who's not in custody, even though I'm not going to say your name, you know who you are, and so do we. And the mayor said it. Turn yourself in, face up to it. And to everybody else in our in our city, the violent criminals, we are standing strong with all of our families, with our mayor, all of our political leaders, and all the police agencies in this region to come after the violent criminals. So, you know what? My mother used to say it all the time. I can show you better than I can tell you, and I'm going to leave it at that. But we stand here strong with these families, and I just ask our community to do one thing, because not only these families, multiple families are suffering right now from violence. And we heard some chatter a few weeks ago, but let me tell you something, from my standpoint and my mayor's standpoint, every block in this city is important. Every individual is important, every family. And we're going to pursue those murder suspects like we never had before. So just know that. And we're going to stand. But the final ask that I ask for our community, when we have children who are impacted by violent crime, please throw our arms around and our hands and our hearts around them. They have some tough days ahead. These families, these mothers, these grandmothers. Instead of us throwing stones, throw our hands around them, okay? So as quickly as we get these charges filed, and I've said they're working on them right now, we will be sending out photos and names of suspects. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and I do want to acknowledge Councilmember Carla Cisneros for being here, and I know how passionate she is about our children in the city. And again, I want to extend my prayers and my condolences to these two respective families, and quite frankly, to all families who are suffering right now, who have been the victims of violence that has taken place in our city, and reiterate the commitment that we are making. As we move forward this weekend, our presence will be enhanced, law enforcement presence will be enhanced, adding additional resources as we move forward, and want to make sure that those who have committed crimes, we will find you. And for those who are even thinking about committing crimes as we move forward, just know that we are all working together to prevent that from happening, and to make sure that you're apprehended if by chance you should commit any crime. Let me thank these mothers and grandmothers who are standing with us. We can't even identify with the pain that they're experiencing, but just know we're lifting them up in prayer.